Hello everyone, today we're going to look at basic definitions. Our first basic definition is the distance formula. If I'm looking at 2 points on a straight number line, then the distance between them is known as the absolute value of x2 minus x1. The distance between 2 points on the Cartesian plane, so points with an x, y coordinate, is coming directly from the Pythagorean theorem, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c is the distance, so we're going to call it d, and then a and b are the legs of the triangle, which are just the differences in the x direction and the y direction. So we get d equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we're going to do a couple examples. We're going to find the distance between each pair of points. So -2, -1, and 1, -5. So I'm just going to plug them into our formula. It doesn't matter which point we call x1, y1, which one we call x2, y2. It also doesn't matter if I do x2 minus x1 or x1 minus x2, and I can flip them. I can do x2 minus x1 squared plus y1 minus y2 squared, because the only difference between them is a negative sign, and when I square them, they're always positive. So if I look at the difference between my x values, -1 and -5, the difference there is 4, and the difference between my y values, 1 and -2, is 3. So if I simplify it, I get the square root of 4 squared plus 3 squared, which is the square root of 16 plus 9, which is the square root of 25, which is 5. So let's try another one. Let's look at the distance between 0, 5 and -2, 2. So I'm just going to plug them in. 2 minus 5 squared plus -2 minus 0 squared, and I'll square root it. Oops, so that plus should be below, and that should be a squared. So that should be 3 squared plus 4 squared. And that's going to go away because I hit the next button, which is the square root of 9 plus 4, which is root 13. We can't simplify it. Usually we want the exact value, so I'm going to leave it as square root of 13. I'm not going to touch the calculator. I don't care what this is approximately. So just leave it as root 13. The next one we're going to do is -2, 3, and 3, -2. So again, I'm going to plug them in. I get the square root of -2 minus 3 squared plus 3 minus -2 squared. Both of those differences are 5, so we get the square root of 5 squared plus 5 squared, which is the square root of 25 plus 25, which is the square root of 50. Now this I can simplify. We need to go back and remember things from intro to college math. How do I simplify the square root of 50? So I want to use the fact that 50 is 25 times 2, and I know the square root of 25. Square root of 25 is 5, so I get 5 times root 2. So this is the simplified exact answer. The other definitions we're going to look at are parallel versus perpendicular lines. 2 lines are parallel if they never intersect. That is the definition of parallel lines. The consequence is that they are either both vertical, which remember means an undefined slope, or they have the same slope. 2 lines are perpendicular if they intersect at right angles. So not only do they intersect, but they intersect at a right angle. And the consequence of this is that either one line is vertical and the other is horizontal, or the slope of one is the negative reciprocal of the other. So we need to have negatives so that they're going in opposite directions, and then they need to be reciprocals so that they're actually the 90-degree angle part. So we're going to determine if the slopes between the following pairs of points are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So you're going to be given 4 different points. So the first 2 points, 0, 0, and 2, 3, belong to some line, and then the points -1, 2, and 2, 0 belong to a second line. So we need to figure out the slopes of the lines. So using the formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we find the slopes. So the slope of the first line is 3/2, and if we find the slope of the second line, we get negative 2/3. And then we ask ourselves, are those slopes equal? No. Are they negative reciprocals of each other? Yes. One is positive, one is negative. One is 3/2, the other is 2/3. So this means they are perpendicular. And this symbol right here is a symbol we use for perpendicular lines. It's a vertical line and a horizontal line. So let's try it with 3, 8 and -1, -2, along with 0, 3 and 6, 18. So again, I'm going to find the slopes of the first one, and I get 5/2. And then I'm going to find the slope of the second one, and again, I've got an error in here. I wrote that it's 5/3, but it should be 5/2. And again, you can verify that. I haven't shown out the math for it. But I've got 5/2 for both of them. They're the same, so that means they are parallel. And again, this symbol right here, 2 vertical lines, is the symbol we use for parallel. So just be careful, and if you're writing it, don't confuse it with an 11. Okay, so we're going to do a couple more, and I would advise you to pause it and try it out before playing it again and looking at the solutions. Okay, so our next one is the points 1, -1, and -1, 1, with -2, -3, and -1, -2. So be careful, there are a lot of negatives here. But again, I would suggest pausing it and trying to find the two slopes first. Okay, so hopefully you tried it out. M1 should be -1, and M2 should be 1. So if we look at those two, we say, well, they're not equal, so our lines are not parallel. But they are negative reciprocals of each other. So it's the thing you want to remember is that 1 is its own reciprocal, right? I can write 1 as 1/1, and when I flip it, I still get 1/1, which is 1. So even though they might not look it, they are negative reciprocals of each other. And that means that the two lines are perpendicular. And then our last example, 2, 2 and 1, -1 with 3, 2 and 2, 5. So again, pause it, find the slopes for yourself, determine whether they're parallel, perpendicular, neither, and then unpause it to see the solution. So M1 should be 3, and M2 should be -3. So again, they're not equal, so our lines are not parallel. They are opposites of each other, but they're not reciprocals of each other. Right? The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. So these two are neither parallel nor perpendicular. So we would just write neither. Okay, so try out some of the homework, and if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. But good luck.